Howdy folks, I'm Brian and here's some Reddit. But before we begin, I just wanted to look at a couple of comments here. This goes back to like the tea controversy, when we were asking whether or not we have tea or water. You'll all be horrified to know that today I do have a nice cup of not tea, or tea, depending on your opinions here. The tea's overwhelmingly won, by the way. I think I addressed that before, but what I wanted to really say here is No Name says that he likes that we look like we're recording in a blanket fort. So welcome to the blanket fort. Then Signify, a couple days ago, asked me if peanut butter and jelly was actually a thing that Americans eat. And I answered the question in the comments, but I wanted to answer it here too, just for everyone else's benefit, in case you care about whether or not Americans eat peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. And the answer is yes. It's basically a staple of childhood, or at least it was a staple of my childhood. Maybe some of you did not eat it all the time growing up, but it's a nice cheap food, and it tends to be something that kids like a lot. Adults will eat peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, but it's mostly kind of a kid's food. In Maine, where I live, we also have something called marshmallow fluff. If I can speak, marshmallow fluff is essentially like this marshmallowy spread that you can put on things, and we put it on peanut butter and fluff sandwiches, and we call them Fluffernutter. So it's a sweet, probably overly sweet. I haven't had a Fluffernutter since I was a kid. It's probably very, very sweet and probably not very healthy, but they were very good from what I remember as a child. So yeah, we have some odd foods here and there. So thanks for asking that. I thought it was fun, and I really thought that would be a fun question to bring up here. So yeah, let's get started. So our first letter is titled, "Am I a jerk for wanting to verify my husband's chores? I feel like I may be going nuts here, and I need a sanity check. So, my husband, a 40-year-old male, and I, a 32-year-old female, had what started as a fun chore game. Basically, to get us motivated to do chores around the house, the husband suggested gamifying it. We have a list of chores pinned to the wall, each worth a certain number of points. Cooking a complicated dinner is 10 points, doing laundry is 5 points, and so on. It sounds silly, but it actually made it more fun, and we could joke around that one of us was going to level up before the other. Each week, the points reset, and whoever won would get a prize. Now, before, the prize was always something like getting serenaded by the other person or getting a back rub. Super low stakes. Then, a month ago, husband suggested that we up the ante by making it real prizes. He proposed that whoever lost would wash the dishes for the next week without earning points. I was a little hesitant because I felt like it could lead to resentment by the loser. But the husband said it would just motivate the loser to try harder next time. And that washing dishes wasn't a big deal anyways. I thought there was no harm in trying it out. It was a pretty close competition, but husband won the first week. He then won the second, third, and fourth weeks too. I like to think I was a good sport about it, though it was a bit hard. While I was washing, husband would sit at the counter eating a snack and gloating/teasing me, saying stuff like, "That's right, keep washing." I know he meant it as light teasing, and it was funny at first, but after weeks, I found it obnoxious. I asked him to tone it down, and he would for a little while, but then he would start up again. Today, things got weird. It all started when I took a photo of the whiteboard that we used to keep track of points, to text a friend since she wanted to try. A few hours later, when I looked at the whiteboard and the photo, I noticed that the points were lower than before. Now, I've always had serious memory issues when it comes to numbers. I can't even memorize a phone number, so normally, I would almost always certainly write it off as my own mistake, but the photo was right there. I didn't know what to feel. When I brought it up to him, he looked surprised and said it probably happened by accident when he touched or erased the whiteboard and wrote it back wrong. I asked him if maybe going forward, instead of relying on the honor system, we could have a Google Doc with the points, since Google will show you all of the edits. I presented it as a way for us to avoid accidents. Here is where husband became really upset. He asked if I really distrusted him so much as to think he would cheat at a silly game like this, and all over washing dishes. I said it wasn't about the dishes, but being fair. He wouldn't hear any of it and said my accusations really hurt him, that I was being controlled by wanting to verify and audit his chores. The more he talked, the more I started doubting myself. Am I the jerk for suggesting the audit? Edit. I've been asked to add this to my post. Husband and I have a 5-month-old boy, and I do most of the childcare. The childcare doesn't get points because the system is such that we don't get points for our jobs. He works much longer hours than me, and I only freelance very part-time, so the childcare is considered my job. I understand that there are a lot of problems in our relationship, though I don't want to make it sound like he's doing nothing either. He works so often, so much. Sometimes he leaves at 6 a.m. and doesn't get home until around midnight. The way he racked up points before is he does a lot of big ticket items over the weekend. He works only 4 days a week, and on the 5th he has to recover as his work is heavy manual labor. Then is pretty much doing chores the whole weekend. The weekend is where I catch up on a lot of sleep, while he handles all of our budgeting and getting groceries. He cooks and freezes a lot of meals for the upcoming week, general cleaning and tidying up the house and upkeep. That's when he watches me do the dishes too, so gloating is not happening all the time, only on the weekends. Reading all these comments has been emotional for me. I was honestly so overwhelmed by some of the support that I cried a little bit reading them. There have also been a couple of chat messages calling me a doormat and spineless, etc., which were quite nasty, though maybe not quite wrong. I feel validated, but also embarrassed that I may have been naive and played for a fool. I've known this man for a long time, and my family loves him. I trusted him implicitly. Even now, it's hard to get out of the mindset, and I'm fighting the urge to make excuses for him. The morning before he left, he said he was sorry the game upset me. I slept in the baby room because I didn't want to be near him. I told him it wasn't the game that upset me, it was him. He kind of shook his head and said we'll talk more when he didn't have to work. All right, OP. No, I don't think that you're a jerk here. You didn't even accuse him of cheating. You said that maybe we should use a Google Doc. That way everything can be a little more audited. That way if accidents happen, people won't, accidentally mark things down wrong. Like, it seems really, really suspicious that your numbers were lower. And if I had been in your situation, what I probably would have done is I probably would have taken a picture every single time I wrote up my points from that point forward, just to see if there was any suspicious activity. And then at the end of the week, I could have made a determination if that was just like a one-time mistake or if there were, more nefarious type things going on. I wouldn't have even raised it to him until I had collected some more evidence. Because sometimes, things do happen, accidents do happen, and it's good to have just a peace of mind. And then that way, if you see it happening multiple times, it's not just an accident anymore, that there's some malicious and a nefarious thing going on here. Amber and I actually did a chore chart a long time ago. We haven't done it for a very long time, but this is very similar to what we did. We kind of tallied points up, and we trusted each other, and we also had a Google Sheet to kind of keep track of these things. I think it was a Google Sheet. It was like an Excel sheet, or at the very least. And we didn't cheat because these were low-stake type things. I don't even know if we had any kind of reward at the end, mostly just kind of, point-winning type thing. The way this sounds, it sounds like your husband intentionally kind of set this up so that you would have more chores in the end. And I really hate to think that, but this is really what it sounds like. First, he suggests this game, and then he's like, well, let's raise the stakes. And then suddenly you lose week after week after week. I think that this seems really, really shady to me. And on top of that, having the dishes not count, that also seems really shady because that could have been, points towards your next week that you would have been able to have. But now you can't have it because you're trapped in this endless cycle of dishes. So I don't think this is a fair prize for the other person. And I mean, you were reluctant to agree to it. And I think you should have trusted your instincts in this case because it seems like you had a, reason to be a little reluctant. So yeah, I think that's really what my opinion here is. I think that you were, in all likelihood, I would love to believe that your husband just had a innocent, error there and that this was a one-time thing. But chances are, if you have a bad memory and you didn't want to accuse him of anything in the past, that you may have been right in your instincts that your points were supposed to be higher. I think a Google Sheet is a perfectly reasonable way of keeping track of this kind of stuff, and it will, prevent anyone from being dishonest who might otherwise be inclined to be not quite as honest as they could be. So yeah, I don't think you're a jerk. Not the jerk. All you need to say is the whiteboard isn't working and the Google Doc is the only way to keep track safely. Easy peasy. But he's cheating in the game, and then he's being a sore winner and gloating. Yeah. Yep, if he isn't cheating, then what's the big deal if it makes you feel better? Exactly. He accidentally erased some? Really? I would throw this week out and start fresh next week. After all, you don't know what else he might have erased by accident, or how many points he added to his by accident. In my opinion, you should stop the game. There has obviously been some sort of fudging of the numbers. Even if it was on accident, which is doubtful, the point of the game is that it should be fun. Are you having fun? Not the jerk. Yikes, he's playing you. He didn't accidentally erase points on your side only. He has, and obviously has been editing them so he would win and get out of chores. If he really wasn't, he wouldn't have had a problem doing it in docs. It might just be a silly game, but that's all the more reason to cheat. Because why would you cheat over it? Because he can get away with it and he still benefits from it. And OP replies, I really didn't want to think he was cheating because I want to think the best of him. Even now, I'm trying to keep and think of some alternative explanation that I'm not realizing. But you're right, this is weird behavior. Yeah, I mean, I think OP should still try to give them the benefit of the doubt as much as possible, just because there isn't a whole lot of evidence here to suggest that he is cheating. But his reaction to suggesting Google Docs, I think, was over the top. Saying that he's being accused of cheating without her even saying that. And then, this whole situation seems a little shady. It seems like a little bit odd behavior from him. So yeah, I would hold off on accusing him of cheating just because there isn't a whole lot of evidence here. But there may very well, it doesn't look good for him. Let's put it that way. Our next letter is titled, Am I a jerk for yelling at my daughter for asking me a very personal question? Firstly, I'd like to say that in my defense, I thought my partner put her up to it. Basically, I, a 46-year-old male, have been with my partner, a 45-year-old female, for about 20 years. Our daughter, a 13-year-old female, was born. I realized that I didn't know a lot of things. But one thing I did know is that marriage wasn't something I wanted with my partner. I just feel like you meet so many interesting people over your life and you have a chance to take a myriad of different paths and to give up that mindset in exchange for a bunch of government so-called safeguards is not worth it. At least from my perspective, I felt like I was committed to the maximum and I would want to be committed to my current partner in context of how we feel about each other. My partner, unfortunately, despite initially accepting my beliefs, later started nagging me on and off about it. She's been out of the workforce for about 10 years because she lost 2 jobs due to what doctors later discovered was a condition called adenomyosis, in which endometrial tissue grows inside her uterine wall. She burned a lot of bridges because she was unable to remain conscious at her desk and her bosses thought she was just lazy. Recently, she started nagging me again because she says she's been trying to work again, with no responses to any of her hundreds of applications, and apparently that terrifies her. Her parents have also begged me to marry her so she won't have to worry about what they believe will be an eventual midlife crisis. Anyways, my daughter goes to an Episcopal middle school. The community there is kind of insular and gossipy, and everybody seems to have an opinion about everyone else. My daughter came up to me Friday very upset. She asked me point blank why I didn't want to marry her mother, if I would leave her and her mom for a new family. I could not believe her mom stooped that low on the marriage question, so I blew up, saying that she had no right getting involved with an adult business and that I had the right to do what I agreed to with her mom. My partner denies setting our daughter up for this. After speaking more with my daughter, she said that some of the girls at school said they overheard their parents saying that I would marry her if I wanted to, but he doesn't want to. Also, that he does want to get married, just not to her. I didn't expect my marital status to become a topic of scorn and conversation, but apparently it was. I feel bad for assuming the worst, but am I the jerk for believing that my daughter shouldn't be nosy about adult business either way? I feel like my partner's attitude about this topic is rubbing off on our daughter nonetheless, and I wish they'd realize that this family situation is great. Alright, OP, I'm going to reread your sentence here. I feel like my partner's attitude about this topic is rubbing off on my daughter, and nonetheless, I wish they'd realize this family situation is great. Well, I mean, OP, is it as great as what you're making it out to be? I mean, if your wife isn't happy with the current family situation and wants more, then I don't know that the family situation is as great as you. And then you immediately turn and start yelling at your daughter over something instead of sitting down with her and having a discussion with her. That doesn't sound very great. I mean, it sounds like there's a lot of issues here, and we're just seeing the surface of things. Now, I can understand your point of view of not wanting to get married. I mean, sometimes marriage isn't right for everyone, and I think that there's a lot of weight and pressure put on marital relationships that I think is unfair, and I think that delegitimizes a lot of non-married relationships, and I think that's horrible, because I think that you can be as committed to your partner as someone who's married. And clearly in a lot of ways you are, because like you haven't left them, you're fine with your wife, and I mean you're fine with your partner here, and it seems like you're sticking with them, you know, for the long term, and you don't have any intention of leaving, except the thing that concerns me the most is your whole spiel at the very beginning here, when you talk about how you basically don't want to chain yourself to one person for the rest of your life. You had me for everything except this. It seems like you want to have your cake and eat it too. You don't want the commitment of marriage, of the long-term relationship, because you don't want to be tied down, and you want to be able to choose another partner in the future if you deem so. And I think that is pretty telling. Now, if your opinion was more like, oh, I'm committed to my partner forever, I have no intention of leaving them ever, and I think that, you know, I just don't like the title of marriage. I think that it's a thing again. I think the government really just shouldn't have the role in determining whether two people are in a stable long-term relationship or something like that. I could be willing to accept that a little bit more, but really, for me, what this seems like is you just don't want to be chained down with one person forever. And I think your wife knows that. And the reason why I think she wants to be married is because it offers her some levels of protection. As it stands right now, she has no legal recourse if you just get up and leave. Like, she can't claim alimony, but I think the big thing is that she would need some way of being able to provide for herself, especially if she can't, for instance, get a job because of her medical condition. That is actually kind of a fair point here. I think that her looking out for herself is a fair point. And it seems like you have a bit unrealistic expectations about what's going to go on behind closed doors, especially if you're sending your daughter to an Episcopal church or Episcopal school. I mean, you're sending her to a religious school here, and I don't know, I think it's a bit of an unreasonable expectation to assume that people, in a religious setting aren't going to talk about family structures and wonder why your family structure is slightly different. I certainly understand your point of view, and I think that you shouldn't be forced to marry someone if you don't want to. And it sounds like your partner, long-term partner, was aware of your feelings on this from the very beginning, but it also sounds like things changed for her probably when you had your daughter. And I think that's perfectly reasonable for her to have a desire to have things be slightly different just so that she has some protection with her daughter. You're the jerk. Did you seriously think that your daughter would never ever think to ask about why her parents aren't married when she attends a religious school? She's 13, and then instead of going, "That's a personal question, what makes you bring that up?" you went full meltdown on your young teenager. Gross. On a young teenager who's more than likely not being bullied or questioned or mocked by her probably religious teachers or classmates because her parents aren't married. Her father refuses to talk to her about the topic other than saying that he wants to keep his opinions and open to leave his wife if he digs someone else, and who is being sent to a religious school where such non-family oriented ideals directly contrast with what she's being taught as the norm at school. You're the jerk. It's her business too. This is your daughter expressing concern for the stability of your home life, and your response is to blow up at her? Yeah, that's my thought, exactly. And frankly, the over-the-top defensiveness about possibly leaving in the future kind of speaks volumes. Yeah. Alright, our last letter is titled, "Am I a jerk for not unsubscribing a credit card that didn't belong to me on my Netflix account?" Back in 2015, I subscribed to Netflix. A couple of years later, I unsubscribed. Suddenly, in March 2019, I get a welcome email from Netflix with someone else's name. My gmail.com email is often mistakenly filled in because it's one word, very short and very simple. I get curious about what happened with my Netflix account, so I try to log in but get incorrect password. I reset the password just to find out that someone else's name and credit card is in there. I set up the Netflix credentials for my TV and somewhat forgot about it, as I can see the person paying is still logged in with another user months later. Now it's been 2 years and the credit card is about to expire. Obviously, the person cannot log in anymore because I changed the password shortly after it was set up to my email account. So, it's going to expire. I told this story to a group of friends and they tell me that I'm a huge jerk for using someone else's account and assigned credit card. So, am I the jerk? I went to my friends and I asked them, am I the jerk for stealing from someone for a couple of years? And they all said, yeah, you are. But I decided to go to the interwebs, where clearly there are more unethical people, and ask them the same thing. So, am I a jerk here? OP, you are stealing. Even if someone doesn't know you're stealing from them, it's still stealing. Why? Why would you do this? I mean, I guess the boggling thing here is, why didn't you contact Netflix and ask them about this credit card that was on your account? And this is a huge violation of, I guess, privacy, of trust. I don't know. Like, it just seems gross all around. I hardly doubt that you forgot for all these years, for the last couple of years, that you were using someone else's Netflix, a credit card for your Netflix. So yeah, I mean, there's no doubt that you're a jerk here. Who knows what this person is even thinking? This could be just someone who doesn't really understand technology and doesn't really understand how things are working and are just assuming that they're using things properly here. So yeah, there's no two ways around this. I mean, there's no good way to paint you here. You're a jerk. You shouldn't steal from people. And yeah, plain and simple. You're the jerk. You stole someone else's account for 2 years. End of story. I'm confused by this whole thing. Doesn't Netflix require a verification process, like log into your email and click the link to continue type of deal? Edit for clarification. OP is definitely a huge jerk, but I'm still a little muddled on how it got this far. Yeah, I don't really know. I don't know the Netflix sign-in process or anything like that. So I think probably what ended up happening is they were either signing up for like a free account for some period of time, and they had to enter their credit card, and they were just trying it out for like a show or something like that, and then just forgot about it or something like that. But yeah, I don't know how someone would put a credit card onto an account like this and then not log in ever again. You're the jerk. You knew you were stealing from the moment you changed the password. Somewhat forgot about it is jerk speak for saw I'd gotten away with it. You forgot about your Netflix account that was active on someone else's dime. You knew full well you were not paying for it and continued to use it until the credit card on file expired. You're the jerk. Alright, it looks like we've reached the end of the video. Thanks so much for watching. Hey, don't click off quite yet though. I want you to do something. I want you to do that thing you wanted to do today. That thing that you've needed the motivation to do, but you couldn't do it. I want you to do that right now. I mean, I should have put this at the beginning of the video and told you to use this video as motivation to come back later, but do it now. Go do that thing that needs the motivation. Be inspired for a minute. Alright? And then in the comments, tell me what you did. I want to know. So thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you all tomorrow.